Hey guys, this is Shane, and welcome back to Unique Arts. Today I'm just going to talk really quickly on something I don't usually talk about. It's actually a ballet artist. Her name's Bronislava Nijinska. So she was a dancer, and she was a choreographer as well. The name Nijinska might ring a bell because she had a very famous brother named Nijinsky, Vaslav Nijinsky. So they were Polish-born. They kind of consider themselves Russian. They lived most of their early life in Russia, and both of them were actually part of the Ballet Ruses, ran by Sergei Diaghilev, which performed mostly in France. But her brother was one of the earlier choreographers. He only did a few things with that. Essentially, he went mad for the last half of his life, and so he's a really interesting character. But it was when I was looking into him a little bit that I found out about his sister, who nobody remembers for some reason. So she's Nijinsky's younger sister. She's not nearly as famous. She did a lot more choreography than him, though. A lot more. And what's sad about that, though, is that most of them actually are lost. We do not have them. There's been a couple that have been preserved, Les Bichets and Les Noches. I'm not sure. Those are French. I'm probably totally butchering those. She choreographed, I think, over 80 works. I don't remember the exact number. There was like one exhibition on her in San Francisco in like the 70s or 80s. It's been a long time. She did a lot though, and she kind of dabbled in a lot of things. She kind of did more abstraction taste at the time, kind of like Isadora Duncan and kind of like her brother Nijinsky did. And she dabbled with a lot of other things too throughout her career, to be completely honest. But she mostly is known for her neoclassical aesthetic. She's not really remembered for that at all. She's actually pretty much one of the earliest people who did neoclassical choreography, and she's essentially ignored. If you check the Wikipedia page on neoclassical ballet, she's not even mentioned. Balanchine, I don't know how to say his name, I'm really bad with this stuff, is pretty much considered the father. George Balanchine, he's considered the father of neoclassical ballet, and it was like, well, she was doing it pretty much before him, if not at the same time as him, and she's completely ignored. Now, I'm not sure if that's because she's a woman. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Either way, it's really kind of disappointing. But she's really interesting. And one thing that actually I think is disappointing too, her early memoirs. It's interesting, partially it's disappointing in that it's like the introduction for this. Lots of people say they read this because they want to learn more about Nijinsky, like his early life, his childhood and stuff like that. And they completely ignore that this is from his sister. Like, you do get to know more about Nijinsky from it, but you also get to learn a lot about her, and she's just as interesting, if not more, depending on what you're into. It's kind of disappointing, like everyone just completely overlooks her. I mean, I guess you could say their oldest brother Stanislav was even more ignored, but he didn't do anything as a career. He spent most of his life since like a teenager in a mental institution. I guess I should have mentioned too, both their parents were ballet artists, so that's kind of why they moved around a lot, especially particularly in Russia where their parents would get gigs. But she did a lot. She actually created, it's pretty short, you can find it online. Actually, you might not be able to find it online, I don't know. I have a copy here, it's in the back of this, but she made like a treatise on movements and the school of movements, where she pretty much was fed up with the modernists of her day. Maybe she wasn't as revolutionary, that's why people don't remember her, but I think she's really great and really interesting. A lot of the people, like I mentioned, like Duncan and even Nijinsky and kind of herself, they're interested in modernism, but they were completely abandoning the classical school of ballet, and she was like, that's like, why are we doing this? We might as well utilize what's good about the traditional school and combine it with these modern ideas and take like the best of both worlds, essentially. So she kind of went against the modern ideas, and then at the same time, one of her reasons it's called On Movement is because she thought that people had become obsessed with the idea of just the poses that they would end, you know, or go from pose to pose to pose, and she said that's not the point. That's not the point of ballet. The point is the movement. So it's not just about getting from pose to pose, it's about what's in between the poses, the movement from pose to pose. She kind of had a different focus than everybody. I don't feel like it's too far-fetched, but I guess nobody else was really interested in it. But that's Nijinska. You can find slight recordings of her two plays that are still kind of preserved on YouTube a little bit. They're interesting. They're both from the 1920s. She's fantastic. She's definitely worth looking into. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of information about her. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I can answer what I know. Obviously, I try not to throw too much information in these videos, just to give you a general idea. See you guys next time. Feel free to like and subscribe, please. I'd appreciate it, and love you.